Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. Tonight's topic will be arthritis and medical marijuana, a important subject for a lot of people. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things. There's some housekeeping issues that we'll cover right up front. As you can see, we do have a webinar series that we've been going through. This week, of course, is arthritis. We're doing anxiety and stress next week. And then we're also doing a new one on cooking in about 2 weeks, which will be kind of interesting. And then for those of you who live in the villages, we are having an in-person webinar, or excuse me, in-person seminar that'll be at the villages on March 2nd. We'll have one session in the morning at 9:30 and one at 1:30 in the afternoon. So please feel free to join us. Tonight's co-host with me tonight is Jenni Fried. Jenni has got a lot of experience with medical cannabis. And Jenni, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So I am the senior outreach manager for Move. And so what that means basically is I'm in charge of all of the community outreach for our company in the state of Florida. So anything from community relations to physicians, making sure just cannabis education in general, getting the words out to patients and to doctors, and doing everything that we can to try to help educate the patients about cannabis in general, but also about Move products as well.
Well, that's great. You've been recently promoted, so congratulations or condolences, one of the two.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, I'm very excited. I love doing my events down here in South Florida, so I'm excited to continue to bring that outreach program throughout Florida. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I want to mention that tonight's webinar, for those of you who have followed us and been on the webinar series, we're going to have a new format tonight. It's going to be a little bit different. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what medical marijuana give you relief from arthritis. We're going to talk about the cultivars, the terpenes. Does it work? Routes of administration. And then that's going to lead, of course, what we're looking for. If we identify what works, we're going to lead to products that actually can help you. We're going to talk a little bit about Move products that do that. And then after that, for those of you that are interested in how medical marijuana works, how cannabis works, we'll then cover that topic itself. I know we've covered that in a lot of our webinars in the past. And for new people to cannabis, it's important to understand, I think, how it works. I know I'm an engineer, so I always kind of spend a lot of time paying attention to just know exactly the workings of what's out there, and that's what it's going to be all about. So it's going to be three different topics. We will stop at the end of each of the sections and answer questions. So we're going to be answering questions as we go along throughout the webinar. And I should mention that from a housekeeping standpoint, down over here you'll see a little Q&A button. Please click on that and feel free to ask questions. We are here to answer your questions, and there's no question that's a bad question or a dumb question. I know there's a lot of places that you kind of wonder, what can I ask and what can I do? Please feel free to do that. That's what Jenni and I are here to really help be able to bring those to the forefront. There are some people who put the questions into chat, and we have monitors that will monitor that. We will put that back into the Q&A piece. And so don't feel bad about doing that. But if you can do it in the Q&A part, it would help us quite a bit and help us move forward. I should also mention that not only is that you can also, after this webinar, you'll be getting an email, and that email will give you a link to a video, the YouTube video for this particular webinar. So if you want to watch it again or pass it on to a friend, you can. It'll also be slides from the presentation. I know a lot of people take copious notes sometimes, and this makes it a lot easier. You can be able to get those slides without having to write all the time. You can pay attention more to the webinar and get more out of it that way. Also, any sponsor discounts, and I know you have some new ones Jenni will be talking about, so we'll be listed as well, and all the speaker information as well as the resources we use to put this together will be all out there. So you'll get that email as a follow-up, and hopefully that'll help you help you quite a bit. I do want to segue for a little bit. One of the ladies who helped us with these webinars, a tremendous cannabis educator in the Miami area. She was actually called Miss Miami Cannabis. Jennifer Perdomo unfortunately died recently, and lost her. Jennifer was near and dear, at least not only to my heart, but to our hearts. She's a cannabis educator, and we've dedicated this series to her. And we wanted to let you know that that's what we've done. And you'll see her name at the bottom. And that's because our goal is education. And that's exactly what she stood for.
She was incredible. She really had something about her just that made everybody smile, and the energy that she brought. She was one of the first, that started all the education with cannabis. So truly a loss for the industry.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that we want to give an upbeat that we love her and we want to remember her. So we're going to move on and hopefully in her honor do a pretty good job tonight. Let's talk about medical marijuana and arthritis. Now, for those of you who have arthritis, the question is, what can it do for me, or what can't it do for me? First of all, let's start there. It's not a cure. Medical marijuana is not going to cure arthritis. I don't think there is a cure that's known today. It's not going to reverse the process. It does help to rebuild some of the depleted cells, but it's not going to reverse the process. But the most important part to understand is this one right down here. You're not going to have a fatal overdose from using medical cannabis. Nobody's ever died from using it. And I know there's a lot of pharma drugs that you get involved in and you read the label, especially in the arthritis area, you'll read the label and you'll see, be careful of, and a lot of it has to do with fatal attraction, as I call it. You're safe. It's fairly safe. Now, can it get you high? Yeah, you can if you don't use it correctly. And we'll talk about that, but it's something that it's fairly safe to use. Now, what can it do? What it can do is something that's really, really important. It can help you relieve pain. And that's an important part of what we're looking for. And at the same time, it can also reduce the amount of inflammation that's in your joints and that's going out there. And as you reduce that inflammation, it also reduces pain. And there's a lot of people that say, well, gee, I've used CBD oil and it reduces and it helps me with my pain. CBD oil is good, but not great for pain. What it really is great for is inflammation. And as the inflammation gets taken care of, it helps you with the pain. And medical cannabis can, in fact, help you do that. And that's going to be really important, as well as improve your overall physical health, just help your whole body get into what they call homeostasis. And the other part of it is just with being able to relax and anxiety and stress, just being able to relax. In this time, I don't think there's anybody that's not stressed due to this recent environment. And medical cannabis helps with that. It's a byproduct of getting rid of your pain and the arthritis, but it's something that's really, really important. So
I have to say that most patients that, besides for their other symptoms that they're dealing with, stress and anxiety is one of, the number one things that patients come in, looking to help them with and using medical marijuana for.
Right. Yeah. And I think next week's webinar is going to be on pain, anxiety, and stress.
There you go.
So we're very timely.
Right into it.
Yeah, but it's something that's really there. And I think it's something that it's a benefit of using medical cannabis. Now, I like to define the problem right up front, because when you look at arthritis, there's really what they call rheumatoid arthritis, RA, and there's osteoarthritis, which is OA. Both of them are candidly painful, best way of putting it. And people are debilitated. What are some of the symptoms? You have joint pain, you have some redness, you have some swelling. You actually have some sensations of heat, which is interesting. And I'll explain how that works, why your body's being able to do that. And then also it has to do with, it ties back into the fibromyalgias. It ties back into the different injuries that you have with your joints. So these particular kinds of arthritis really provide severe pain, but also can be something that really causes damage to the joints as well. And that's something that we're trying to do is just slow it down and trying to hopefully provide some protectants. So it just slows it down and makes it something that's tolerable for you. So let's talk a little bit about can it work? And I took a page out of, I think it's important. There's a lot of studies about cannabis. So you'll see they're listed when we send your follow-up. You'll see there's a lot of information that's listed. First, I want to point out that most of the studies that are being done are not being done here in the United States. Most of them are being done overseas, because as a Schedule I drug, we really can't do any research into medical cannabis from a medical standpoint. What we can do is do what we call a lot of anecdotal studies, which means we go out and we take a look at the patients, which is what Harvard did. Harvard went out and took a look at a number of patients with arthritis. And interestingly enough, they found out that 1 out of 5 of the people already were using medical cannabis or using CBD for their arthritis, which I found to be very, very interesting. And what they found out was the people 9 out of 10 of those people that were using cannabis for their arthritis said it was helping them manage their pain, which is really, really interesting. And 4 out of 10 people said that it was helping them decrease their reliance on other drugs. 6 out of 10 said it was extremely effective. So there's some, again, Harvard looking at it, going out and talking to people who currently are in the market in here in the United States. I found out it is an effective alternative for relief of arthritis.
Just a comment real quick about research on cannabis. And as Marc said, it being a Schedule 1 drug here in the United States, that is what's hindering us from doing much research. So once that becomes deschedulized, it'll open up a ton more opportunities for us to do research here in the United States. And obviously, you know, the more research, the better for physicians, for patients, the more we understand about the plant. So right now we're having to rely on Canada, Israel, other countries to do these research, but they are there. So if you are interested in those research articles, Marc, I know sends a bunch, but Pubmed is a great resource that if you guys wanted to look into, you could find many cannabis research articles.
Yeah, and PubMed is one of the main areas that I take a look at for a lot of research articles, because even though it's here for the United States, the Israelis, the Germans, the French, the Italians, Spanish, they all contribute to PubMed when it comes to medical research and especially in the area of medical cannabis. I want to also point out that the Arthritis Foundation went out and did a poll themselves. And what's interesting is, without saying anything, they found out that 29% of the people they polled were using CBD. So it's something that a lot of arthritis patients have been trying. And what they found out that was nearly, 80% of the respondents said it helped them, or they've used it in the past and it's helped them in one way, shape, and form. Helped them with the physical functions, sleep, and really a lot of them had relieved a lot of the pain and the stiffness that they had. So the anecdotal studies that have been done here in the United States kind of point to that particular direction.
Yes, and I also love to tell the story. I have a 92-year-old grandmother, which is amazing in itself, and she uses CBD every single day. And when she runs out of her CBD, she tells me that she can feel the physical difference. Her muscles feel stiffer. She feels weaker. She has to rely on her walker a ton more. And so, you know, she's been taking CBD every day for, you know, maybe 2-3 years. And so when she doesn't have it, she definitely feels a difference in her body. So it's working for her.
Right. Now, I do want to point out that we haven't got any questions that have been posted yet. Please feel free to post some questions. Again, there's no such thing as a dumb or a bad question. We're here to answer your questions, and we know that you might have a lot of questions about the product, does it work, and about the arthritis in general. So please feel free to put that in the little Q&A. You'll see a little Q&A, little bubbles down there, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. I do want to point, you mentioned earlier about PubMed. For those of you who don't know what PubMed is, it's where the scientific community publishes all different studies related to medicine. And so it's run by the National Institute of Health, NIH. And there's a number of different, these are going to be available in the review material that we send to you as follow-up, but there are studies out there that show the efficacy of arthritis in medical marijuana. I think the most important is there's a group called SAFE, Americans for Safe Access, and they actually did a study and they found out the same thing. It's much more effective using medical cannabis than using a lot of the other anti-inflammatory drugs that you find out on the market today. And I'll explain to you why that works in a little bit, but it's something that's again, time and time again, we're seeing all the studies and all the indicators that it does work. And there are people that have come out and tried it and showed that it is there. And so again, if you have some concerns, that's legitimate. But I think you'll find that the medical evidence, scientific evidence is on our side right now, which is really important. You were mentioning your grandmother?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we had a similar story. We were doing seminars at the villages really almost every month. We stopped doing them about 2 years ago. And by the way, we will start doing them again on March 2nd in the villages. But when we were doing the villages, one of the people who helped set it up, one of the people from the newspaper, had a grandmother, affectionately known as Nana. At that time, she was 88 years old. This was 2 years ago. And she suffered from a terrible case of arthritis to the point where her hands were crippled to the point where she could not open her hands. She could not hold on a remote control the TV. She couldn't go out. She didn't want to go out in public and eat because she really couldn't hold utensils that well. And it really was affecting her lifestyle, not to mention psychologically helping her. Her husband was just anti-cannabis, it was a drug in his world. We finally got Pop Pop to come to a seminar. He kind of saw the light, and we actually got her and Pop Pop an appointment, got her medical marijuana card. And literally, it's very, very interesting. Within the first couple of weeks, there's a couple things that happened. First of all, she started the arthritis, the stiffness in her hands started to ease up, which is great. Her pain really went down quite a bit. Obviously, the inflammation went down quite a bit. Nana got to a point where not only could she hold a remote control in the evenings, so she could control the TV instead of pop-up, she was actually able to go out in public. She started playing golf again. She started knitting and crocheting again.
Wonderful.
When I see her now, when I go to the villages and I see her, she literally gives me a hug every time and says, "Thank you. You got my life back."
Aww.
And it's really nice to see. Her comments have been very, very positive. Now she's 90 now, but I just want to point out that we've seen a lot of this. We've seen a lot of this happening, and I wanted to point out that that's the case. I know that my mother's pretty much the same way, but I thought Nana was a good option. So when people hear about cannabis, they hear about THC and CBD, and they hear about that it has different cannabinoid receptors, and those receptors actually help be able to heal you and make you well. And I just want to point out, and Jenny will chime in on some of this, THC is really known to help with both the CBD1 and CB2 receptors. They really address them, and it works very well in that. We call those agonist and anti-agonist, meaning that they activate those particular receptors in the body. But also CBD has an interesting characteristic, because not only does it work with the CB1 and CB2 receptors, it also works with other receptors in your body. And there's a number of them that are here that you'll see that are there. And so in other words, it's not only just helping with the endocannabinoid system, it's helping with your body get healthy in general. And I know that's a lot of words that are out there. And I'm not going to go through the slide. It's a real busy slide. But here's where CBD actually works with the different receptors. And we know that they've worked with different receptors that are out there. For example, one of the things is CBC is very good at the CBC helps to detect and regulate your body temperature. And this is where your pain comes into play. Pain actually is related to having you feel the heat. For example, it makes you feel the pain a lot more intensely than you'd really see in the past. Now, all of these have something to do. For example, if you took at CBDA, which addresses the inflammation cells themselves, it's really, really important. So you can see that there's a number of different what I call CBs that help you quite a bit. Not to mention some of the THCV, which is a very important cannabinoid as well, has a lot to do to help you quite a bit.
I'm going to back up just a minute. If those of you are confused about all of these letters that Marc's talking about, so basically when you have a cannabis plant, there are aspects of the plant called cannabinoids. And those are typically what we find helps medicinally. And so a lot of times we extract those certain cannabinoids from the plant to get those medicinal benefits. So as you can see on the left-hand side, there's all of those cannabinoids. So those are actually components of the cannabis plant. And then in our bodies, we actually have an endocannabinoid system, which is actually a whole system of receptors that a lot of times your body is depleted of these receptors, and the receptors are empty. And that's why CBD and THC has a lot of really great effects for people, because your endocannabinoid system is depleted and it's really looking to get back to that homeostasis point that Marc was talking about before. So it needs these different elements to be able to adhere to the receptors in order for your body to release from these other functions here on the right-hand side, and to help with the pain and the inflammation and other symptoms that you might be dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I confuse a lot of people by having some of these initials that are out there. It's kind of like, this is what's in cannabis. These are the different components of cannabis, and these components address very, very specific receptors in your body. And so we've known all the ones in blue. There's scientific studies behind each of these that show that it does in fact address that particular receptor, that particular condition and reaction in your body. And so it's interesting that you wonder why does it work against epilepsy? Well, we know what that's all about. That's what the CBDV is all about. So there's a lot of components. I'm not trying to get technical on anybody. I think it's important to understand there's more to this plant than a lot of people understand. And that's why people call it complexity, because as we're discovering more of these cannabinoids, we're discovering more of what it does for you. So I
Yes,
just
and
wanted to
why
give
the
you,
research is super important.
yeah, we've got it, as a country, we really have to start joining the current century and stop letting the world lead us and have us lead the world for a change. But that's just my position. Of course, I'm a cannabis advocate and practitioner, so I would take that position, but I do think it's something that's important for the millions, thousands and millions of people out there that are suffering from a lot of different medical conditions. Let's talk about what strains work. I know a lot of people have said, tell me what works. And for example, there's a number of different strains that are here. I know one of them that's very popular is ACDC, right, Jenny?
Yes. So I love ACDC. So when we're talking about strains, for those that are not too familiar, so when you go into a dispensary and you're looking for certain products, there might be different strains or names of different plants that you see. So basically, these are just, we like to call them, so different, it's just almost the plant is like plant genetics. So each plant has different DNA. And so the way that it's grown has different DNA. And because of that, it has different components, which can help with different symptoms and conditions. So these 5 right here are a couple of the different options that you might be able to find when going into some of the local dispensaries. ACDC is a specific strain that we have it's a high CBD strain. So you're not going to feel the psychoactivity from the THC, but you're going to be getting the added benefits of the CBD. So as you can see here, so the indica and sativa, I think we're going to go over that a little bit more later on, but indica typically is for nighttime. Sativa is typically for daytime, but a lot of these plants and strains are hybrids. So they're a combo of these, of both of those effects. And then you can also see the different strains and what the ratio of THC is to CBD. So the THC again is the pain reliever and CBD is the anti-inflammatory. But the THC is the more psychoactive. So the higher the THC, the more psychoactivity. And then the higher CBD is you're going to get more of the anti-inflammatory and less of the psychoactivity. And then moving on further down the road there, you have the terpenes. And I think we'll go over terpenes a little bit, but basically
The next slide will be on terpenes. But I think what we want to do is point out that there's a couple of very effective high CBD to THC ratios. For example, ACDC and Cannabis are 2 that are very popular for arthritis. Probably the 2 most popular that are out there.
yes.
I put Girl Scout cookies in there because there's a lot of articles that reference it for arthritis. And candidly, I've found from talking to patients and with people that I've worked with that ACDC works a lot better than Girl Scout cookies, just for your information. Okay. Now, these strains we actually call cultivars now. And we'll explain cultivars when we talk about the medical cannabis part of this. But I think it's really important that when you go into like Move and you're looking for something, you can actually start looking for something like ACDC, something like Cannabis when you have actually this particular condition.
Correct. And it doesn't have to be, necessarily flower. You can get some of these strains in vapes and other things like that. So don't just think that it has to be in a flower form.
Right. Let's talk about terpene for a second, because a lot of people concentrate on cannabis and they concentrate on the CBD, THC, CBNs, that type of thing. But in reality, you really that's kind of, you got to have the gas in the gas tank to make that happen, and that's really where the terpenes come into play, right?
I always love referring to them as the aromatherapy of cannabis. So, like I said, the plant, like Marc said, is very complex. So besides for just the CBD and THC, there's also terpenes, which is the aromatherapy. And because of that, there's added medicinal benefits. And that's what differentiates the different strains. So for example, whenever, when you think about something with lemon, you typically think about when you wake up in the morning feeling invigorated. So that's typically when there's something called limonene that comes naturally in cannabis. So there's specific strains or cultivars that contain this limonene terpene in it. And because of that, it gives you, as you can see on the left-hand side, these are the effects that you'll feel from a certain strain that contains limonene. So elevates the mood and relieves stress and gives you all of those things that you look for when, it says a lot of the cleaning products and cosmetics have limonene added in them. And going down the line there, you have everything from pinene, which is more of like a pine cone smell. And some people have, and it's interesting because a lot of people can tell just from smelling if they like it or not. And that's something your body will naturally tell you whether or not it's for you or not for you. Linalool is a known favorite because that's lavender. So obviously a lot of the indicas, the ones that you're going to take for at night, have linalool in them, more relaxing, sedative, antidepressant, anti-inflammatory. So you want to maybe look for things with linalool in them because it has that anti-inflammatory. And same with pinene has that anti-inflammatory as well. Most of them do have that effect. As you can see going along there, some of them are higher in some of these terpenes than others. And that's something that the dispensaries can go through with you. If you go in there and you say, hey, I learned about this terpene. Do you have anything with that? And the bud tender, med tender should be able to help you and guide you through what the store has with these different terpenes to help with your specific symptom and condition.
Right. And all of these terpenes that we listed here are, if you notice, they all are anti-inflammatory. And that's really key to really helping with arthritis. I think, yeah, that's really an important part of it. I like eucalyptol because one of the problems I find is always weight control. You know, I'm one of those guys that if I chew on a toothpick, I get fat. So you know, I just got to worry about being able to handle it. But I think there's again, by being able to know that there's some terpenes that are in here and there's something that can help you, that's an important part of medical cannabis. Now, the other part of it goes back to how you can take it. And I think, Jenni, we're going to point in your next slide, we're going to talk a lot about your products. But I think more importantly, a lot of the cultivars that you saw, a lot of the strains come in a number of different ways or different ways of routes of administration. So do you want to explain those to us? Because I know that you have, for example, an RSO that has AC/DC in it, and it's fantastic.
Correct.
But I'll let you talk about that.
Absolutely. So here in the state of Florida and many medical programs, it's not just about, smoking marijuana like you guys might have been used to in the past. There's many, many different routes of administration that you can take cannabis, which is nice because not all things work for every person. So having these options and a lot of times figuring out your perfect blend that works for you is sometimes a combination of some of these things. So it's good to get educated about it and be aware so that if one thing doesn't work, you can try something else. So to go through some of the different routes, one of them is like, you might have heard tinctures. So that's your sublingual oil drop that goes underneath your tongue. And that's going to take 15 minutes to 40 minutes, depending upon which tincture you get and from where. And we'll go into moves tinctures and why they differ a little bit more than some others. And that one you'll see lasts for 4 to 6 hours. Then there's vape, which most of you are aware of, and the benefits to that is it's immediate. So that's the quickest way to get relief is through inhalation. So we do have vape pens, so that's 2 to 4 hours. So you can see the difference between a tincture will last 4 to 6 hours, where vape 2 to 4 hours. There's also,
Jenni, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second because in my particular case, I have 7 herniated discs in my neck. And I have, when I wake up in the morning, sometimes my pain level can be a 7 or an 8. Although I have figured out a way of getting around that these days, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the point is, when I wake up on my nightstand, I have tincture oil, and I put that underneath my tongue, and literally, but in my case, about 20 to 25 minutes, it starts taking effect. But I don't want to live for the next 20 minutes with a level of pain of a 7 or an 8. So I have a vape pen, and I take 1 or 2 hits off the vape pen, and literally the pain goes away almost immediately. And the first time that happened, I remember saying to my wife, "This is absolutely crazy. This is going on." And even when I did it this morning, 5 years later, I still am amazed at how fast it works.
Right. And you found your perfect blend. So that's
I found my perfect blend. Yeah. And it is a move vape pen. So it is one that's out there. So,
that's the dart. I love it.
Yeah. But the point I'm making is that you can mix and match these. I want to interrupt you to show you can mix these together, because what you want to do is come up with a regime that says, if it's going to last 4 to 6 hours, here's what I take in the morning, here's what I take in the afternoon, here's what I take in the evening, because you need to be able to cover it. And most importantly, here's what I take at night to go to sleep and stay asleep. And you'll talk a little bit about that when you get into the edibles.
Yes. So the next category is capsules, and that's like pill form. So that can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours to work. So definitely realize that some of these things take a while to feel the effects. And that's something that we talk about with edibles, because a lot of people don't feel it right away and they take another one and then they end up in trouble. So that's something to know, is that with capsules or edibles, sometimes it can take more time for you to feel the effects. But with that being said, it also lasts longer. So, you have the 5 to 8 hours or the 4 to 10 hours. So again, like Marc was talking about, edibles are a great option for sleep. For me with the chocolate, so I take the chocolate at night, but I know I'm not going to feel it right away. So I do the inhalation before sleep, and then the chocolate kicks in once the inhalation kind of wears off.
That's a good point, because the edibles, I'll use your case of chocolate. I'm a chocoholic in the evenings too before I go to bed, so I'll fall into that category. But what's interesting is that they'll last, like you mentioned, 4 to 10 hours. So if I take it, let's say an hour or two before bed, in my case, it takes about 45 minutes for an edible to work. And so I know that it starts taking effect. I can go to sleep and sleep through the night, and it gives me a good night's sleep. And it really is effective for me. I found it's even better than gummies. The chocolates are better than gummies in many cases, and we'll get into that in another discussion. But for long-term relief, edibles are very, very effective. Sometimes during the day, and there are edibles, and I know that there's a question about, can I get an edible that's not a THC edible? And we'll talk about that, because Jenni, you sell some of those. We'll get into that category. But the answer is, sometimes even during the day, if you're going to work, what you're able to do is you're able to take some edible and it lasts throughout the whole day, especially if you're on your feet and trying to walk around and standing, and that kind of stuff that comes into play. So for long-term relief, but be very careful of edibles, because most edibles are high in THC. And like Jenni said, the worst thing you can do, there's thousands of stories, which I always get a kick out of, where somebody takes an edible. There's an old saying that just about the time you think the edible's not working and you take another one, is about the time it starts working.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'll let you go on. You have a great line of topicals, by the way.
Yes.
And I'm wearing a Move patch right now. I love your patch and your pain relief products.
Yeah, thank you. So we do have some topicals, and that's an option as well. Your typical, sports gel is a great one, because it has the menthol, which is a cooling sensation. So that might be beneficial. We also have the pain relief cream as well. These are spot specific topicals, and that almost, works immediately. There are other options, and we'll go through it down in a few slides. Move has a patented technology for some topicals that allows for the topicals to actually get into your bloodstream, making them systemic, because most of the ones on the market, they're spot specific. So if you have an elbow issue or shoulder issue, you do have to put that topical specifically on that spot. But Move does have a product line that you can put it on any venous area, and it actually gets into your bloodstream, making it fully systemic. But we'll go through that later. So transdermal patches, like Marc was talking about, we have a 3-day slow release patch. I love this product in conjunction with other products, because it is a microdose. So it's a small amount of medication, but it's a great product because it kind of lasts you throughout the day without you ever having to go down into that valley and feel that pain again. It kind of keeps you in a good condition all throughout those 3 days.
And that's one of the reasons why I wear the patch. I think I mentioned it. How am I getting around this? Wake up in the morning and being a level of 7 or 8. A lot of it has to do with the transdermal patch. That makes a big difference.
Yep. And those come in a couple of different versions: CBD, just THC, and a 1-to-1 option, which we'll talk about later. And then also something exclusive actually to Move is a metered dose inhaler. And that is very similar to like an asthma inhaler, an albuterol inhaler, but it does contain THC. So it, again, just like inhalation, it does work almost immediately. So that is a great option for quick relief. But again, it is a microdose. So depending upon your tolerance and what works for you, this is a great for people who maybe are new to cannabis and want to try to feel it out and see how it works with their body. Right. We also have an oral spray, and this one actually, I think we are the only ones that carry the oral spray, but this is actually a really, really great product specifically for fibromyalgia, arthritis and those topics, because this is almost immediate and you get that relief. And it's a little bit more of a higher dosing, and it's portable and it's small and it doesn't smell, and it's a great option. And then of course flower, as we call it now, which is your typical pot, weed, whatever you guys were used to, but we call it here flower in the state of Florida. And that, of course, is going to be your immediate, it's going to work immediately, your quickest relief, and last for 1 to 5 hours. And then we've
also have shatter and crumble, which is a lot of the flower products that have been fundamentally they've been put into a form that literally is almost, the reason they call it shatter, it is almost like it almost looks like little glass, and crumble, which are little crumble pieces. The nice part about shatter and crumble is it retains a lot of the a lot of the terpenes and flavonoids in it, which the problem that you have with flower is the minute you light up a joint, you're losing 50% of the cannabinoids and you're burning off all the terpenes. So a lot of the medical benefits of cannabis, although you can get that from flower, the best way, if you really like inhalation, is to go with a vape pen, because the vape pens do have the terpenes, and it does have some of the flavonoids in them, which the flower tends to burn off. So you're talking about the efficacy of medical cannabis. That's the head in that particular direction.
Yes. So crumble and shatter are concentrates. So those are going to be your high potencies macro dosing of cannabis.
Yeah, and really, you really get in after you've been in cannabis for a while. You take a look at that. But if you're a beginner, or you're just starting out, or just the average user, you probably won't head in that particular direction. Now, what I would like to do is I'd like to talk about answer some questions. So we have some great questions. I know there's a couple of ones that one question is, I'm having trouble finding a product that is high with CBD and low in THC. Most are 1-to-1. She's in Tallahassee. Mimi, I think if you can get some ACDC from Move, I think you have a dispensary in.
Yep, you do, with a drive-through.
Which is great.
So yeah, ACDC RSO or any ACDC product will be your high CBD, low THC from Move.
Yeah, and Canasu fits in that category as well.
Yep.
And again, they come in a number of different forms, which you'll be able to use not just flower, but also, like you said, RSO oils and a number of other things that are out there. So I think that's an easy one. And then one of the other ones I do want to take that, and this is Cheryl St. James brought it up. She said, I don't have the option of different CBD. I use a gummy, but there's gummies with CBD in them, right, Jenny?
There are gummies with CBD. We at Move, we don't sell gummies with just CBD. We have CBDs that are 1-to-1.
Right.
So we do have THC and CBD gummies as well. So it does contain 10 CBD and 10 THC.
Right. And I think that's called watermelon. It's coming in a watermelon flavor, right?
That one is pink lemonade, actually.
Oh, sorry, pink lemonade. Yeah. Sorry about that. But I do know that they are available, and I think it's important to point that out, because most of the gummies that you look at are almost all THC, and that's not going to help you very much. Pay attention to the label, and this is where going to a quality dispensary like Move, they'll help you be able to get that, to help you get some CBD in that gummy. That'll help quite a bit. Let's see. Roseanne had a question. I think it was Move recommended ACDC for neuropathic pain. What is it and would it help? You want to tackle that one, Jen?
Yeah, so it's basically what we've been talking about with ACDC. So that's the strain that's high CBD, low THC. So therefore, you're going to be getting a lot of our ACDC products, if you go the RSO route. So RSO stands for Rick Simpson oil, which basically, so when you extract cannabis, you typically are only extracting the THC and CBD cannabinoid, but actually Rick Simpson oil is full extract. So there's over 100 different cannabinoids in the plant that are showing medicinal value. So with Rick Simpson oil, you're literally taking everything, the lipids, all the good stuff from cannabis and putting it into a product. So the ACDC RSO has all of the good stuff from cannabis without having to feel the extreme psychoactivity because it's high CBD. So that's why I love the RSO products, but we do have, ACDC and other products as well. So it's just a strain with high CBD. So that's why they recommended that one for you.
Right. Right. And it's used in a number of different products, but it's something to really pay attention. That's a good question to have out there. Roseanne also asked a question, what is Delta 8? Now, we're not going to talk about Delta 8 per se, but Delta 8 is a cannabinoid that's found both in cannabis and in hemp, excuse me. And what it's been found to is it's a brother or a lesser potency than the Delta 9, right, Jenny? You want to tackle that one? Or you want me to take it?
No, it's fine. So typically, Delta 8 is it has to be chemically produced. It's not something that occurs naturally in cannabis, from my understanding. So that's for one. And it is, the problem with Delta 8 is because we don't carry, Move doesn't carry any Delta 8. So there's no regulation on Delta 8. So unfortunately, here in the state of Florida, if you're buying or Delta 8 products, there's no testing, there's no regulation, so you don't really know what's in it. And as a consumer and a patient, I'd like to know what I'm taking, especially as a medical patient. So with Delta 8 right now, unfortunately, with there no regulation, you really have no idea what you're taking. So that's why, in my opinion, and this is just me speaking, I steer clear of Delta 8. Doesn't mean that that's the case for everybody, but I just like to know that what I'm taking is safe, tested, go through labs, and I know where it comes from, where it's grown. And so that's just my take on Delta 8.
Yeah, Delta 8 is effective to address pain. There's no question about that. But the problem is it isn't produced in high enough quantities in the cannabis plant to be able to effectively, what they call, isolate it and to produce the quantities that match the demand that's out there. Now there is some hemp manufacturers that have been able to figure out how to do this, and that's where it really came from the Kentucky hemp world. But my caution to you is exactly what Jenny said. If you are looking at Delta 8, check out the COA, the certificate of authentication on it, because you got to make sure it's been tested, not just by the manufacturer that makes it, but from third-party labs. That's what's really, really key. I did a webinar on Delta 8, and what I did was I went to my local market, found 5 stores that carried it, and out of it, 3 of the 5 stores had a COA that was worthless, meaning it was a year old, it was 18 months old. Really, that product shouldn't even be on the shelf, but it is. The 2 that I did find were quality manufacturers. They did do the testing that's out there. But again, it is something that you got to be very, very careful of. I just think hopefully there are some other alternatives, especially for arthritis with respect to pain and inflammation, rather than just Delta 8 won't really address the inflammation part. And that's the biggest problem with arthritis today, that it's really not, Delta 8 is really not an effective option for arthritis patients. And that's why I didn't include it in tonight's webinar. It's out there. And I hope that answers that question. One of the questions that we actually came up, Kim asked a question that she has 9 herniated discs in her lower back or lumbar. God bless you, Kim. I have 7 in my neck, and I can tell you it's no picnic, that's for sure. You were asking about what's the best route. I think, first of all, you have to understand that cannabis is very much personalized. It has to do with your body. So there is no take 2 pills and call me in the morning solution.
No, it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, that unfortunately it's not there. You got to figure out what works for you. Now, and I think that's what you got to do, a little experimentation to find out what your tolerance is for THC, what your tolerance is for CBD, and then also the ratio that really works for you. But the best route I have is, since I'm relying heavily on tincture oils, and those tincture oils last for 4 to 6 hours, I have a morning routine, I have an afternoon routine, I have an evening routine, and it sounds crazy, but I have a before bed routine. And the reason for that is because I've got 24 hours in a day. And in my particular case, I don't know about your herniated discs, but if I don't address the pain in my herniated discs, my little neck taps my shoulder and says, "You better do something pretty quick, cowboy, or you're going to have some pain here." So I found that I have to have a 24-hour regime. So there's 4 dosing periods that I go through during the day, and that's why I found the patch to be very, very helpful. For example, it really helps me go through those, especially if I'm busy and I'm doing things and I'm out and about. It really helps quite a bit. So the best routine that I found is, in my case, it's a combination of tincture oils and also vape pens. Okay, because I found the vape pens to be extremely effective, and the vape pens work immediately, and that's what's really, really important. So, and I hope I answered that question. Cheryl asked the question: is a vape pen better than a gummy? I feel that the gummy only works for about an hour and a half, or instead of 4 to 6 hours. Again, that goes to your personal side that's out there, what really works for you. But I found that for immediate pain relief, I found that the vape pens work best. Is that safe to say, Jenny?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's important to, with the vapes, there's so many options out there for vapes that I think it's important that you find a strain that works for you because, it's not same with the vapes. I mean, it's not just one size fits all. So there's many different strains to pick from. So for your specific symptoms that you're dealing with, talk to your med tenders and exactly what you're looking to treat. They can help you figure out what the best strain would be for that vape. But I do agree it is immediate. As far as gummies and have you feeling like it only works for an hour and a half. So not all gummy is the same either. I don't know, gummies. I don't know if you're having Delta 8 gummies or if it's a MMTC gummy, and even the gummies between the MMTCs are different. For example, with Move, our chews, they have 40 to 50 different terpenes reintroduced to them, which shows to be a higher medicinal benefit, where the other ones I think only have 4 to 5 different terpenes. So you may feel that different edibles from store to store may even be different. So definitely try different products if you haven't already, and that may help you for getting it to last a little bit longer. If the gummy doesn't work, maybe try chocolates.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you said, Jenny. I've tried edibles from almost all of the different dispensaries, and again, in the one-to-one categories, I found that the most effective one for me has been Move, and really it goes back to the fact that you do reintroduce those terpenes. It's not just the CBD and THC; it really has to do with the terpene profiles, and that's really important that's out there. So, and then Joe, what I would do is I'd take a look at a combination of both, not only vape pen, but also I'd take a look at some of the tincture oils. And again, the good news and the bad news about RSO is it's very effective and it works, but be very, very careful because it's very strong too. It's like bourbon whiskey, be careful. It's great to try, but go low and go slow. Let's put it that way.
That's why I love the RSO tinctures, because it allows patients to microdose on it and go slow. Because a lot of times if you try RSO in the syringes, it's very, very psychoactive. So the tinctures are a great way to start RSO and see how it works with your body.
Right. We'll take one more question, I think, about Move. Does the Move spray have a strong taste?
It actually has a mild orange mint taste. So I don't know if you meant strong as far as cannabis strong or just like a strong flavor, but it does not have a strong cannabis taste, and it is a mild mint orange.
Yeah. So yeah, and I know a lot of your tincture oils, your tinctures have like a minty taste to them as well.
Yeah, so we have 2 different tinctures. So the regular tinctures are THC, CBD, and 1-to-1 tinctures. Actually, that has some of our encapsulated technology that we'll talk about soon. And we do use alcohol extraction. So there is small traces of alcohol in our tinctures. So that's why they're a little bit stronger tasting, the CBD, the THC, and the 1-to-1, but they are more effective. And we do recommend if it is too strong of a taste, to mix it with water or juice, because Move's tinctures are water soluble, so you can mix them with water or juice and take it that way as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer one more question from Linda Miller. Made a good comment about that using a CBD THC combination works better than just THC for arthritis, which is true, because if you're getting the benefits of the CBD, which we talked about earlier. She was asking about the ratio, and Linda, I just want to point out that this really is something that you've got to work with your medical marijuana doctor or your practitioner that you're working with, and figure out, you got to figure out what your tolerance is and what your sweet spot is with respect to cannabis. I really can't give you a real good answer about that, but I can say, Jenny, you have some consultation services, right? That she could talk. It's a good time to introduce that concept.
Yes. So at any point, we do have, and we have the info at the end, we do have a telephone line that you can call, and we have free live Zoom calls that you can do a consultation with somebody on a computer and ask them literally any questions that you may have. You can come into the store. We do have a consultation room. So if you feel like you want that privacy, we will offer that as well. And we also have a call center. So anytime you want to just pick up a call and just, ask anybody a question, we do have those services for the consultations.
Right. Okay. So I said I did one last question, but I will answer one last one because it has to do with my friend Nana. Virginia asked a question. She says, where in the villages do they sell ACDC? And does the 90-year-old Nana take the CBD or does it have THC in it? Nana takes a 1-to-1 ratio to give you an idea. Okay. We put it on 1-to-1. It works, and don't play with it. She takes it morning, midday, and in the evenings. And I think almost all of the dispensaries that are located in or near the villages does have an ACDC line. I don't know, Jenny, you don't have you don't have a dispensary in the villages. You have one close to the villages, right?
Correct. It's not in the villages, but it is close by.
Right.
I think Lakeland.
Yeah, Lakeland. And I think also, again, it's a fairly popular cultivar that's out there. And so that's why I wanted to point out it's something to really pay attention to. So let's move on. Let's talk, one thing is to talk about, does it all work? Let's talk about products that work. Let's talk about the actual, let's land the bird, let's land that plane on the runway. What works? What can you take that actually does help with arthritis? So Jenny, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. So we went over this quickly previously, but this is a nice visual of the different options of routes that you can take your cannabis. So starting with the left, you see the topicals, and then edibles, the tinctures, the capsules, the oral spray, and then moving on to transdermals, the transdermal gel, as well as the 72-hour patch. The transdermal gel, that is going to be that topical that I was telling you about that you can put on any venous area and it gets into your body, making it fully systemic. For arthritis pain, excuse me, I feel that the transdermal gel is extremely beneficial. Smoke-free inhalation, the vaping, and then the metered dose inhaler. Those are two options if you don't want, to have a lot of smoke while you're doing your inhalation. And then, like we talked about before, the concentrates and then the flower. Right.
Now, one of the main reasons why your products work so well is one of the patented technologies you have, which is the encapsulation. I want you to explain that, because when I first met Todd and the group, this was years ago doing the seminars, we talked about this and I was rather intrigued about it. So tell me what it does.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So Move is actually a research and development company. We spent a lot of time really looking at the science and trying to create products that would be the most beneficial for patients and looking outside of the box at some of the technology. So basically, THC particles are not water soluble. So they do not want to enter into your skin at any cost. As you can see in the diagram on the right-hand side, you see all the THC and they're not wanting to penetrate past the skin. But we've created technology, patented technology called Encaps. And what that's allowed us to do is that's allowed us to break down the THC particles into smaller elements, encapsulate it, and allow for it to be water soluble and enter into your bloodstream and get absorbed into the dermis layers and therefore into your bloodstream. And therefore, if you're in pain, it's not just one little spot pain, the whole body pain, this helps with. So we have a couple of products that actually contain this patented technology that I'll talk about.
Well, let's take a look right here.
Yep.
So here's the different ways of routes of administration we talked about earlier. And you clearly have a plethora of products to fit into that.
We do. I definitely recommend, and we'll talk about it at the end, but for those of you who are interested in learning about our products and our product line, our website is amazing. Our team that works on that does a really nice job. We have a really great blog writer who talks a lot about the products and about cannabis and is a really good education portal. So just use that as a resource for those that want to enhance their education. So as you can see here, starting with the sublingual tincture drops. So that's kind of those black bottles right there. There you go. Our inhalation vape pens. So over here, we have a couple of different lines. So the ones with the green tip, not the dart, but the green tip and the orange tip, those are called 510 threads. So those just fit on any normal battery that you can buy at a gas station or anything like that. We do have a disposable pen, which is that gray one in the middle. And what's nice about that, which I really encourage those that are either new to cannabis or new to Move, this is a great option because it's a smaller pen. It's only 300 milligrams and it's strain specific. So it kind of allows you to try different strains without having to buy, a 500 milligram cart like the other ones. It's 300 milligrams. So it's a little bit smaller, less expensive. And when you're done, you throw it away. So that's a great way to try different strains. We also have the Move Dart, which is what Marc was using, and that's a pod system. So that green little cap at the top, that's what you buy that has your cannabis in there, and you just replace those tops. And they are strain specific and hybrid sativa indica for the darts. And then, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then our capsules.
They're part of this in here.
There you go. Yep, there you go. There's our capsules. Our topicals. So up there in the right-hand corner, you have some of our topical gels, the sports gel and the pain cream, and then the littler bottles, that's the Evolve gel, and then the patches right there.
I want to mention something about, look, I love your topicals. I love your gels. Okay, your patches. You got a great, probably the best line of topicals in the industry. But there's this thing called hydrogenated lotion. I have one of my bad habits or good habits was I was a golfer. I played competitively in high school and college, did play professionally, and was in the golf industry for many, many years. And that translates to spending a lot of time outdoors. And literally 45, 50 years outdoor, you get a tremendous number of sunspots on your body. And I started using your hydrogenating cream about 3 years ago. And my sunspots aren't gone, that's for sure. But boy, I have to tell you, they have really been relieved. Wow. I have a plastic surgeon friend of mine who constantly talks to me about that. And he basically said, what are you doing? I've watched you over the last 2 to 3 years. And, about 60, 70% of those sunspots are gone. Wow. So I want to tell you that works great. Don't overlook. Incredible. Now, it's not something that you use and tomorrow they're gone. Okay. I use it every morning right after I shave. That's my aftershave. That's what I'm putting it. But it works, and I want to give you a lot of kudos for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love that.
So
yep. So moving in that that little
sorry, you want to go back?
Yeah, one more.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I was just showing the edibles up there. As you can see, the chews that we have, the chocolates, and we also have lozengers. And those are like sucking candies. And then the flower and the concentrates.
And the wanners are great because the wanners are set up so that a lot of times when you get a lot of edibles here in Florida because of the heat, you have a problem with them when you put them in cars and things like that. And you don't have that problem with the wanna products, right?
Correct. So because we use pectin instead of gelatin, it actually increases their melting temperature. So it takes more to get them to melt. So you can leave them in your car, your purse, and they all won't clump together.
Right. Cool, it's there. Okay, so cool. We'll with that one.
I do want to mention real quick. One of the new products is the Ease oil that was on there too. That was one that I was talking to you guys about previously. That's the one up there in the right-hand corner.
Up here.
Yep, right there.
Right there. Yep.
That's the Ease Vaginal Oil.
Yeah, and it's very popular. I know it's one of those things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but I tell you, it works great from what I've heard.
I've heard nothing but great testimonies from women with endometriosis, menopause, cervical cancer, any of those women issues. I've heard really, really good things about.
Right. Cool. So you have, of course, let's talk about your flower.
Yes.
Which is the core of what started the whole thing.
Correct. So we have premium flower. It's grown in a state-of-the-art indoor facility that I actually went and visited for the second time a few weeks ago, and it's truly impressive. And so at Move, we actually have what's called 3 tiers of flower that you can purchase, and the tiers are based upon the size of the bud. So like down there, that's like what we consider a bud. On the bottom there. And so our tier 1 is going to be your biggest size buds, and then tier 2, and then tier 3 is almost like the popcorn buds, so smaller size buds and at a lower price point.
And I have to tell you, I had a chance to visit your grow facility in Apollo Beach, and I come from Silicon Valley, which is the clean rooms, where we put on the little outfits and the hats and the masks and everything.
Right.
And it brought me back to those days. I mean, when they talk about a facility that pays a lot of attention about the quality and about making sure that they have a clean product, that it was there. I got great pictures
Yeah, we
from
have
that.
one of the things that we have our own lab on premise.
Mhm.
So what's nice about that is we actually can do all of our own in-house testing before we send it out for third-party testing. So it really gets, made sure that it passes all the tests.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about vapes.
Yep.
I'll go down to vapes right here. There we go.
All
I
right.
think you were covering a lot of those earlier.
I did. I covered most of them earlier. As you can tell, this is a smoke-free way, fast acting, and many different formats. So really, it's anybody can find something that they're looking for. If it's along the lines, we have a huge array of different choices in vapes. So those are your go-to, and we always have great sales on vapes too. So that's something we'll talk about at the end, is some of the promos and discounts and things
Yeah,
like that.
and again, I think that a number of people, I love people come to me and say, I smoke medical marijuana, it doesn't work, or it does work. And I kind of basically push them into taking a serious look at vapes, because vapes, you get the terpenes, you get some of the flavonoids in there, which you do not get when you fortunate up a joint. So this is a very effective, whatever discs or whatever, it really makes a difference. And then the other is your transdermal patch and your gels.
There you go. So now you can actually see what the patches look like. And it's going to give you 0.24 milligrams per hour over 72 hours. So as you can see, that's a very low dose, but it's a long, steady release to give you that overall relief. And like I said earlier, it comes in just THC, just CBD, and a 1-to-1 combo. And I do love the 1-to-1 combo, and I think we're going to be talking about it a little bit later. But just to reiterate, THC and CBD really do work better together. So that's why 1-to-1 products are so popular, just because you get one side for pain, one side anti-inflammatory, and both of those compounds just synergistically work better together.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed out something that's really important. One of the reasons why Western medicine has so much trouble with cannabis is that it's that 1-to-1 effect. We call it Entourage Effect. That when you put CBD and THC together, it works much better than by themselves.
Right.
And of course, in our medical communities, we want to study one pill for one condition for one result, and we're going to study it forever. And the problem is that they don't take into effect that the synergies between the plants, and the fact we've had 6,000 years of history that shows it does work. But besides that, we'll go into different. It is very interesting that I'm not sure that the Western medicine world has wrapped its mind around the benefits and the complexity of cannabis, and hopefully they will in the future. We'll see how that all works out. So the next is RSO, which is great, right?
Yes. So I spoke about RSO a little bit. So RSO was created by this gentleman by the name of Rick Simpson. He himself had cancer, and he came up with this regimen of taking large amounts of full whole plant extract and helping to cure his cancer. And he actually found there to be extreme benefits for him through the RSO in his treatment of his cancer, relieving a lot of the symptoms of chemo. So a lot of times people, when they hear about RSO, they think about, chemo and heavily sedative, and that it is. But like I said, it also we have, as you can see on the right there, the tincture, which allows you to microdose on and getting all of those really beneficial compounds listed down below to get the most optimal beneficial value from that.
I'm a big fan of RSO, I have to tell you. Now, again, be careful, because RSO, like edibles, it is powerful, but as a tincture, it's probably the most effective. And also, because it is powerful, you don't need that much of it to be able to get the relief that you need. Okay. Right. And I think that's really important, that's out there. And of course, you have your capsules, yes, which everybody's used to taking capsules.
Yes. So our capsules, it says encapsulated capsules. So this has our technology. It has our Encaps technology. So why that's important is because with edibles, like it normally takes a longer time to kick in. But with the capsules, the encapsulation, it allows for quicker onset time. Right. So when you take the capsule or our THC tincture, like shown there, you will be getting a quicker onset time quicker relief of your symptoms because of that encapsulation. And that was what was important to us, is making a product that the patients can get relief quicker.
Right. And you know, the capsules go into your stomach. It has to be absorbed into by your stomach linings. And then it gets converted, interestingly enough, and I'm trying to get technical, but it gets converted into hydroxy 11 THC versus Delta 9 THC, which is actually more powerful than Delta 9 itself. So it's actually a very effective way. That's why it lasts you talk about the 4 to 10 hour kind of thing. That's why it lasts as long as it lasts. But it does take longer for that whole process to kick in. Very effective way of using cannabis. Yes. It's out there. And most people know about taking pills. That's why I'm putting it.
Right.
One of the issues that I have is my mother, who is diagnosed with breast cancer. We put her on a regime of RSO. The problem is she had trouble with the oils, so we actually put them into capsules. Yep. That's why I'm putting it. Mm-hmm. And did that. We actually bought capsules.
A lot of patients already have their pill box ready to go for the week, so you just add an extra one in.
Yeah. Mom, this was 5 years ago. Mom is 93 years old and still using it and still alive, and cancer is in remission. So much to her doctor's chagrin, the operations weren't the answer. Right. So let's talk about your discounts, because you just added a couple, but look, cannabis is expensive. It's not covered by insurance, but you've done a lot to really buffer the cost of it for a lot of patients.
Yeah, we really try to. First thing I want to say is, if you guys are not already subscribed to our emails, make sure that you do that, because that's the only way that we tell patients about our current promos, and we run daily promos. So make sure that you're signed up for that by going through the website, so that you can get all those discounts. So first of all new patients to Move, if you've never been to one of our stores, you get 25% off regardless. Also, something I want to mention, which I don't think is on here, is that every time you go to your physician, make sure that you ask for a physician referral card, because Move offers this. This is going to be 3 separate discounts that you'll get besides for your first time 25% off. So you'll get an additional 25% off. And then the next time you'll get 75 off of 150. And the third time you come in, it's a buy one, get one. And that you can get one of those every time you renew your card. So every 7 months, you get a new one of those cards.
And then, your medical marijuana doctor should give that to you. The person that gets you the re-ups for that card.
Your medical marijuana doctor, correct. I did see a question about that. So while we're talking about doctors, I will answer that question. You do need a medical marijuana doctor. If your primary care physician is not a recommending doctor, which most of them are not, there are specific doctors that just do cannabis. Marc, you can talk about that and where to find doctors, but we also, on the Move website, there is a page that you can go to and enter in your zip code, and it'll give you a list of all of the doctors in the area that do cannabis.
Yeah, and look, in defense of a lot of medical doctors, when they went through med school, they were not taught anything about cannabis or the endocannabinoid system, or all the things that have really been happening in the last 10 to 15 years that we've learned have been really able to help a lot of people. They actually have been steered away from using any holistic treatments at all, not just cannabis, but holistic medicine. They've been threatened that if they use any holistic medicine remedies, that they'll lose their license, which obviously stops them from practicing. So there was almost an anti-culture. I know that I've worked with a number of doctors. When I had my knee operation done, I worked with Jewett Orthopedic, and they're a very large orthopedic surgeon here. My doctor wanted to see, when I told him I was going to try medical cannabis for post-surgical pain relief, he thought I'm the great guinea pig that they've been looking for. And actually I worked with 5 doctors there. I was monitored by 5 doctors. And it turned out that medical cannabis was much better than any of the pharma drugs that were recommended by them. There were 5 of us in the group. I was the only one using medical cannabis. After about 2 months, 3 of the 5 converted over to medical cannabis, to give you an idea, because it was so much better, it worked so much better, and it didn't have all the negative side effects of the pharma drugs. In the case of my mother's breast cancer, her doctor was very told me point blank that if she didn't get her operation, she'd be dead within 2 months. And I told her that's not the case. Here we are 5 years later. He actually made her do we actually both agreed to do a CAT scan every 6 weeks, or there's 2 to 6 weeks. And when the breast cancer was shrinking, going down, after about 4 months, he came back and said, I had no idea what was going on, but I'm going to learn more about this. This is something I need for my patients.
Yeah.
So it's an educational issue, and I'm defending the doctors. I'm not pointing fingers at them. And a lot of doctors, just if they don't know about it, it doesn't exist. Right. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. My answer is, if your doctor is against cannabis, find one that is. I know that there's a lot of doctors today that have really, in the last 3 to 4 years, have really changed their tune with respect to cannabis. One of my neighbors came over and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, he just been to his doctor and he recommended CBD." The guy was 92 years old, and I said, "Roy, this is I'm amazed, but it is something that's coming. Let's put it that way." Yep. I don't want to get off on a tangent. Anyway.
Moving on. So we do offer a senior discount, 10% discount, 55 and above, but we also have senior Sundays. Right. So on Sundays, the seniors get, I think 20% off.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we have a pediatric discount as well. That's a 25% off discount. And then we have 2 new added ones recently. This one is a higher education discount. This is for college and university students, and that's a 10% discount. And then one of the other new ones we have is our Social Security Disability Insurance discount, which is an additional 10%. And then
that's stackable. That's on top of the other discount that you get, right?
Yes.
Right.
And then we have the veterans discount, which is 20% off. And then we also have a really nice referral program. So once you do come and see us, there's going to be at the store, there's going to be a blue card. And on that blue card, what you'll do is you'll put your marijuana number, your P number, you give it to your friends who have never shopped at Move before. When they bring that blue card in, you get $25 to use on your account, and that is stackable with discounts as well. So it's free money.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about your locations. You've got a lot of them out there.
We do. So we have 41 locations currently. We have a lot more coming in the next couple of months. So if there's not one close to you, there will be soon, but definitely check out these locations, some of the newer ones. Stewart was a newer one. West Melbourne is a newer one. Looking at the list there, Merritt Island. So we've got a few newer ones. If you're
Bradenton's a newer one, I think, right?
A second Bradenton one. Yep. So lots more coming.
Yeah, you guys have done a great job. I mean, it's a matter
of
a
lot coming in Miami. So I see, as you can see, that down in the southeast, we're a little low there, but they're all coming.
I love it. Down in the Keys.
Yes, we have a Key West location. So if you're ever traveling in the Keys, we've got one right there on Duval Street.
Oh, now I know when I retire, I'm going to be your manager for your Key West store.
We all did fight over that store. Whose store is it?
No kidding. No kidding. And then also we talked about earlier, they can reach you by phone, but more importantly, you can set up consultation services, right?
Exactly. So here's that information that we were talking about. So you can either send a message right there, or you can call to set up that appointment, or speak with somebody immediately. And those are the patient care team hours as well, as you can see on the left.
Right. So here's that information, but let's just dive into a few more questions, because we had some questions about Move and about chat. B. Smith said, are the 1-to-1 THC CBD gummies strain specific sativa indica hybrids? You want to answer that one?
Sure. So our 1-to-1 THC CBD gummies are not strain specific. None of our gummies are strain specific, but we do have sativa, indica, and hybrid gummies as well, but they're not strain specific.
Right. And Mimi asked the question, what form does ACDC come in? You have a number of different forms.
A number of different forms that comes in the RSO syringe. We have ACDC. I don't think we've had it in flower in a while, but ACDC in the RSO tincture. And am I missing ACDC in vapes?
Right. Cool. Okay. I'm going to grab one here from Kim West. It says, vis-a-vis the receptors, does it deal with the T3 and T4 levels? Do you want to answer that? You want me to take it?
You take that one, since you're taking that university course talking all about that.
I knew that you'll get reflected that way. The answer to your question is yes, it does deal with the levels. But the problem is, I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier. It depends on you and your metabolism and how you handle cannabis. Sometimes it increases and sometimes it decreases those. So there's not the answer is yes, but the question is what effect does it have? And that's where, again, you got to work with your doctor, you got to work with your practitioner to help you be able to figure the exact effect that it does have. It does have, but it does affect those receptors that are out there. And then I think we answered your question about the gummies. Joanna asked a great question, and that is, I am highly sensitive to CBD, and I've run into people that are that way. Would you recommend, what do you recommend instead of CBD for inflammation?
I was looking at the question. So okay, so she wants another route besides for CBD. Well, I would look at some of those strains. I mean, we have, if you looked at those terpenes, a lot of them had anti-inflammatory effects. So I would maybe try how are you with THC? I mean, I don't know if it's just a CBD thing. If you're willing to try the THC side, if you are, then I would try to look for some of the strains that have the anti-inflammatory effects and just see what works for you there.
Yeah, some people are highly susceptible to CBD. It's rare, but it exists. Okay, it's not as rare as some people think. But you're not odd. It is not a common condition, but it is a condition. If you take a look at the chart that I showed you, the THCV products that you saw are really, really good for inflammation. And so you've got to kind of step. So where you typically worry about getting into the THC products about getting high, sometimes a lot of people that are sensitive to CBD are not as sensitive to THC. And again, it just depends on your body, depends on what's going on. But I would take a look at a product that has a higher concentration of THCV in it. And I think you'll find something that might help you in that particular category. But again, you got to get away from the CBD product and touch something on the CBD, on the THC side. I don't know if that helps answer that question, but it's something that'll provide some relief without looking at CBD by itself. Let's see. Kim asked the question is, will they adjust some required drug tests for hire? That is an excellent question. Prescribed medical marijuana can fall under the ADA, American Disability Act, wouldn't it? You want to answer that one about drug tests?
Yeah. So unfortunately, because marijuana is still federally illegal, and also the way that it is in the state stated, each company can make their own decisions, unfortunately. So as of right now, there is no employee protection, even though there desperately needs to be employee protection, there is not. So unfortunately, if a company decides that they want to have a drug-free policy or they want to drug test you randomly, they unfortunately are allowed to. And if they want to terminate you because you have THC in your blood, fortunately, they can.
Right. And that's the law. Now, let me talk about reality. Okay. Right now, a lot of employers are having trouble finding employees. And you've probably heard that employers like Amazon, and also what's fascinating to me is Amazon, there's one other, but I recently was talking to some friends of mine in the banking industry, and it turns out that Chase and Bank of America are stopped drug testing for THC and CBD products. In California, where I come from, if they did drug testing, we wouldn't have Silicon Valley, we wouldn't have a computer programmer. And most firms that work in software or somehow work in technology have really relaxed any requirements for drug testing because you won't find a quality engineer, best way of putting it. And so if you want to have a quality workforce, you're almost being forced to be able to relax those laws. Now, if you're in the area of operating heavy equipment, that's a different story. Just like you don't want people drinking, you don't want people to really get into high doses of THC. It's there, and there's good legitimate reasons for that. Interestingly enough, it's kind of a catch or catch can, but what they're finding out, a lot of employers are finding out, is if you're going to go do drug testing, you probably want to have a lot of employees. Best way of putting it. So it's kind of the laws of gravity are taking force right now, and it's waking up a lot of the folks that are, let's just say, not as conscious of the fact that cannabis is not a drug. Let's put it that way. So again, the law is the law, but I'm finding that the more I talk to people, not just, I mean, I've been talking to folks here, not only in Florida, but also in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Virginia, a number of different places. These regulations or these drug tests are falling by the wayside very, very quickly. So, okay, well, let's see. We're going to have one more question. What is the bioavailability of a transdermal gel? You want to try that one?
Yep. So I'm very glad that you asked that. So actually, one of the huge benefits of the encapsulation is right there, the bioavailability. So you're really getting the most bioavailability in any type of gel through the transdermal gel because of that encapsulation.
Right. And then it goes hand in hand with the question that she asked about, is the skin area where you see the veins. The point is, do you put it where you have the pain?
No, you put it on venous area. So for example, your wrist, the top of your foot, maybe your lower back, any area where there's a lot of veins, that's where you need to put it. It does not need to be on the specific spot.
Right. And I will, for the anonymous attendee that said I've had knee operations and my doctor doesn't believe in medical cannabis. I've had two. I've had both my knees replaced. I had one of my knees replaced twice because I had it done so many years ago. The one I had wore out. Find yourself a doctor that is friendly towards it. My surgeon, who did my knee operation, is now a medical cannabis patient. Now, obviously, he's not going into the surgical center with using cannabis, but he's on his feet all day, and he's an athlete, and so he uses a lot of the topical gels and things like that to help him basically make it to help him compete. So he's in the seniors Olympic team for the United States, I think, something crazy like that. So, well, let's talk about how it works. Let's digress for a second, talk about how it works, and then we'll answer some questions that are out there. So cannabinoids, what are they? Cannabinoids are the compounds that you find in cannabis. And the best way of putting it is, where are they? Well, what cannabis does is help you create a state for your body called homeostasis. They call it your body in balance. And that's tied to an endocannabinoid system that's tied basically into your nervous systems that basically is saying, I want to be able to provide my body in balance. If the nerves see that there's a problem, I'll create endocannabinoids. And what I'll do is I'll send those endocannabinoids to that part of the body to address it. And so so that's why endocannabinoids are so great for treating medical problems that are out there. And I'm not going to go through all the different, let's say, current uses, but these are some of the things that they found that the cannabinoids help. And each of these is backed up by a study, by the way. So you can see that cannabis has helped quite a bit. There is no other, candidly, plant or drug that has as many medical benefits as cannabis. And that's what confounds a lot of the doctors. That's what's confounding the Western world, is this, the more they look into it, the more they find how much it helps. And so the question is, why does that happen? And the reason it happens is because we have in our body endocannabinoids. You are a cannabis plant, best way of putting it. You're producing endocannabinoids, and that's how your body puts you into homeostasis. That's how it helps it regulate itself. Now, what they found, this is where you've probably heard of Dr. Raphael Mechoulam and a lot of the studies that came out of Israel. What he found out was the cannabis plant, produces what they call phytocannabinoids. And the phytocannabinoids exactly match the cannabinoids that are endocannabinoids that are in our body. So when we have, for example, a endocannabinoid deficiency, for example, they found that migraines are coming from having endocannabinoid deficiency. By using phytocannabinoids, you're basically giving your body the material, the raw material, the gas in that engine to be able to address that particular condition and to be able to produce it that's out there. In my particular case, I'm a senior citizen. I'm not producing the endocannabinoids that I was producing before. But by being able to use cannabis, I'm able to give my body the raw material it needs to be able to provide an effective product moving forward. So that's kind of a quick overview of how it works. Also, one of the things, a little known fact is, or you might already know this, a lot of that comes from the trichomes. This goes back to your tiered flowers, right, Jenni?
Yep. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that the trichomes are, when you look at flower and people might say, oh, it's so crystally. Those are the trichomes on the top of the plant, and they show to have a lot of benefit. And that's where you're getting a lot of the medicinal parts of it as well. And that's one of our concentrates. The rosin is actually just all the trichomes taken out of the plant.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because people ask me where it comes from. They think they're buying a bunch of roots. They really aren't. They're getting those little trichomes and a lot of. That's why you have your tiers. The ones at the top are usually more, because they get the sun, they get the light. They're more robust than the ones in the middle and the ones at the end. They're all effective. They're just bigger at the top than at the bottom. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we covered this earlier about how the cannabinoids affect different parts of your body. And I think we covered this slide as well about the different ways that those cannabinoids. And what we found is that when you use the term CBD can be broken down into a number of different cannabinoids. And so there's a number of different products that are in, or a number of different medical benefits that are in cannabis. Interestingly enough, there are 450 medical benefits in cannabis, which is very fascinating. And there's no other drug and there's no other plant that they know that has the power of this. That's why if you talk to scientists, they call it to be complex. And that's because a lot of the norms we've been using to try to find out how this thing works break down because 1 and 1 is 3 that's out there. And this goes back to that THCV product that we talked about earlier and why it works. It's basically a neuroprotectant. And it basically helps the nervous system. It helps be able to take nerves that have been degenerated. It basically helps them get some protection back. Again, it's not a cure, but it's something that does help you quite a bit that's out there. So I'm not going to dive deep in this slide because we could talk about this forever, but I just find it very fascinating to know that all the components of cannabis and how it works. Be careful about people who take classes, Jenny. Now THC, THC is interesting because it's either a good guy or a bad guy, depending on how people look at it.
Right.
People worry about the fact it does have psychotropic effects. You can get high. You can feel good. My mother, who is God bless her soul, she's a nice Portuguese Italian mother who has the patience of a gnat. And when we got her some gummies or some chocolates, after 5 minutes when it didn't work, she had to take it again 5 minutes later and 5 minutes later. And of course, an hour later, she's feeling good. My brother called me up. I had my brother go check on her, and he said, "Mom's baked." Best way of putting it. And it had, because it didn't kill her. Right. She felt good. She was very happy. But the point is, it is there. And some people don't want to lose that control, and we understand that very much. But what it does do, it's very important. THC blocks the pain signals that go to the brain, and that's where in the case of arthritis, we have to have some THC in the product if you want to get rid of that pain. Is that safe to say, Jenny?
Yeah, and don't be scared of THC. What's maybe what you're used to back in the day, smoking a joint or whatever and feeling high. There are so many options to be able to get that THC without feeling necessarily that psychoactivity.
Right. Yeah, and it again, medical cannabis is where you're actually being able to get the medical benefits out of cannabis without necessarily getting high. Now, some people want to get high. That's a different story. I'm not going to address that one right now. But the point is that you can, in fact, effectively manage, and we know that we can manage THC to be able to help with a number of different conditions that are out there. And you can see it has tremendous benefits for helping with a number of different conditions that are out there. Now, CBD, which is the other part of it over here, it acts as what they call an inverse agonist. Now, that's a technical term. What does that mean? That means that it reverses or it slows down, for example, the effect of certain components. So, for example, if you use CBD, it'll lessen or block some of the psychotropic effects of THC.
So I always like to make. Go ahead. That's why I always like to say that if you're going to be doing, and probably what you were just about to say, any type of edible, and you potentially maybe have too much THC, always having a bottle of CBD by you is a good idea, because you could take that and it'll slow down the effects of the THC. Right.
New patients should absolutely have a bottle of CBD oil next to them, because if you start getting that high and you're not feeling comfortable with it, taking some CBD will counteract that quite a bit. And I don't think a lot of doctors, I think a lot of the medical marijuana doctors should be recommending CBD to their patients. I know, Jenny, you have a CBD product that you sell in your dispensary, right?
A couple different CBD products.
Right. Yeah, yep. The CBD tincture especially is very effective.
The CBD tincture, correct.
Right. And I've recommended that particular product to a lot of patients for that particular reason, that as you're going, the concept of dosing, which is, there's been some comments about how the problem with cannabis is to find your sweet spot, to being able to go low and being able to go slow, is really being able to find what's your tolerance to THC, and then once you find that tolerance, how much CBD do you need to address your particular condition, and having that bottle of CBD around to counteract the highness really makes a big difference that's out there.
And what you'll find at a bunch of different dispensaries is sometimes they do ratios, and they'll sell you different ratio products, 15-1, 9-1, 3-1. We at Move don't do ratios besides for the 1-1. We sell just the CBD tincture and just the THC tincture alone. That way you can figure out what works best for you. If maybe during the day you need 5 drops of CBD and 1 drop of THC, then that's your formulation. And if at night you need to switch it up and you need 3 of THC and 1 of CBD, that way you can mix and match and figure out your comfortable level.
And you brought up a really good point. The really good point is that a lot of dispensaries with the ratio products, you buy a product, it doesn't work, and then you're stuck with, you bought that bottle, you're stuck with it, okay? The nice part I like about Move is you can start with the 1-to-1. Again, you have the CBD, you have the THC, you can actually buy a 1-to-1 product, which starts there. You can start with that 1-to-1 product. You can add a little bit more CBD to see how that works. You can add a little more THC, and you can actually, in essence, you're your own bartender.
Yep.
Best way of putting it. But the point is, you are in control. That's the main part about this. Not somebody else isn't in control. You're in control, and that's what I love about the Move products is you're in control of doing that. Go low, go slow, and testing it, and how much to be able to find your sweet spot. And I think it's a lot more effective doing that than running through a bunch of bottles and the cost of a lot of different ratioed products that are out there.
Well said.
That are there. But the CBD is very effective. And as we mentioned, not only is the CB1 and CB2 receptors, but all the other receptors in your body. It's really a tremendous product that's out there. And one you should have a bottle of CBD by you at all times, in my humble opinion. Now, the question is, how does all this work? Well, we have an endocannabinoid system that's been discovered. It was actually discovered in the 40s, but it really wasn't brought to the mainstream, brought out in the light until almost the 90s, when Raphael Merchulam was studying cannabis. And what we found out is we have CB1 and CB2 receptors throughout our whole body. A lot of the CB1 receptors are in your brain, in your central nervous system. A lot of the CB2 receptors are in your gut and distributed throughout your body. CB1 is something that the THC likes. CB2 is something that CBD likes. Although CBD and THC works on both of those receptors, that's primarily what's out there. But what they have found is that these receptors in your body work in essence like a lock and key with the cannabinoid receptors. And that's what makes it so effective. Your body needs to produce endocannabinoid receptors to be in homeostasis, to have your body be in balance. And if it doesn't have enough raw material to be able to produce that, that's where conditions like migraines come into play. That's safe to say, Jenny?
Yes.
So it's out there. Now,
yep. So CB2 is peripheral system and CB1 is more of the brain
right.
activity. So,
right. Yeah. Now, this is a very complex slide. I'm not trying to confuse everybody, but you have your CB1 receptors. And again, the CB1 receptor, CBD goes and works with them. Same thing with THC, works both of them. THC works a little bit better with the CB1 receptors. It still works with the CB2 receptors. But the point is, this is where that lock and key comes into play. And what causes that lock and key? We have what I call the dynamic duo. It's the AEAs and the 2AGs. And people don't talk a lot about that. But these are components that are in your body. These are part of the plant itself. These are part of the endocannabinoids that actually help the cannabis fit into the receptors in your body and helps basically makes the whole thing work. And the reason I call them the dynamic duo is because when you have a problem, typically a lot of people run from the problem. But if you take a look at like you take a look at AEA, it actually works with the CB1 receptor, and this is where it stops the pain. It blocks it up here, so it goes to the problem. Helps be able to solve that particular problem.
Superheroes.
Pardon?
It's the superheroes running to solve the problem.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't talk a lot about that, but without those two products, we wouldn't. I have a slide on them. I'm not going to. This is a very busy slide, but these are without them, cannabis doesn't work. And I think it's important just to know they're there. Don't have to worry about it. Don't have to get technical about it. You know, the best way of understanding it is AEA or anandamide is basically your body's own version of THC. And so if you don't have enough of it, your body needs to be supplemented, like with migraines, to be able to solve that problem. And a 2AG is something that works with both receptors. And this is fundamentally is tied basically to your fatty acids. And you might say, what are the fatty acids? Why are they important? Because that's where cannabis is stored. When you take cannabis, it's stored in your fatty acids. when your body, when your nervous system, your nerves have a problem, they will go to that fatty acid, extract that raw material, and then be able to produce the endocannabinoids that you need and send it to that part of your body. We have a slide on that coming up, but they just want to let you know that they're there, and this is how cannabis works. And this produces something called the Entourage Effect. And what does that mean? Your body knows you have a problem. Your nervous system knows you have a problem. You don't have to have a doctor that tell you have a problem. Your nervous system will tell you. If you have, in the case of Nana, she had arthritis. She started taking cannabis for arthritis. She found out the pain in her shoulder went away. Okay, because her body knew that there was a problem. In the case of my mother, who was taking it for breast cancer, she went to the glaucoma doctor 3 weeks after she started this, and the doctor said, "I don't know, what are you taking? The glaucoma's gone." Right? And she called me up and said, "Does it help with glaucoma?" And the answer is, "Yeah, Mom. I didn't know that was one of your issues." But this is the entourage effect, right, Jenny?
Yep, that's exactly what I was talking about, is that everything coming together, that it's not just one component, it's many components that make the overall effect. So it's just much more complex than I think we all originally thought, but that this is proving the reason of why cannabis does work for us.
And and it's been working for thousands of years. And so, and trying to find out exactly why isn't exactly easy, based on the fact that we want to study one thing and one thing and one thing. But when we look at the combinations, for example, we know that there's a cannabinoid called CBN. We know it's great for relaxing, puts you in a relaxing state, helps with sleep. It works better. It's enhanced when you have CBD and THC with it. And there's a lot of people that think, so I'm going to sell you a CBN product. Well, you got to have some THC and CBD there to really have it be effective. So, and that's the entourage effect that's out there. And you'll find that that's one of the main reasons that cannabis really exists. Now, when I got in the industry 10 years ago, all we talked about was sativa and indica. Is that right, Jenny?
Correct. So
and these are different size flowers, aren't they?
They are different size. And as you can see, one's tall, one's short, one's got narrow leaves, one's got broad leaves, longer flowering, shorter. So they look like they're, pretty much opposites. But sativa, as I said earlier, typically was known for that uplifting, invigorating, creative side, whereas the indica was more of the sedative, relaxing, sleepy side. But now that we know so much more about cannabis, and as our cultivators are getting more educated and more experienced, we're using more of the different compounds, the terpenes, the different cannabinoids, not just sativa and indica. So as we're learning more and more research, we're being able to really grow specific genetics that we're learning that are beneficial for certain symptoms and conditions, which is really awesome. And that's why a lot of the dispensaries and whatnot are looking to collect data from patients so that we really can help and tone in on some of those specific aspects that are helping patients, so that we can grow specific strains containing all these different compounds and the different components to form that entourage effect to really produce the additional benefits that we're looking for.
Yeah, it has to do with the genome. I mean, as these growers are beginning to grow cannabis, what they're finding out is just like there's different types of roses. You talk about roses, there's a whole bunch of them. That they're finding out is we're now growing a lot of different, what they call cultivars. They used to call them strains because they were looking at the cannabinoids. But now when we take a look and add the terpenes into it and put it together as a product that addresses a medical condition like ACDC, goes after, for example, arthritis, they're now being called cultivars. That's kind of where you're looking at the terpene profile as well as the strains themselves. And technically they call it chemotypes. But that's where the flowers are being grown. That's where your plants are being grown that's out there. And that goes back to how do you find your sweet spot? Because now you can actually take a look at, and this is where I recommend, talk to your doctor, talk to your dispensary. It's like, get the consultation that you do is free. Is that right, Jenny?
Correct.
I would not, every medical marijuana patient, whether you've been using it for years or whether you're new to it, I think you should call it, move and have a consultation. You'll learn something. It'll help you be able to put it all together. I liken the sweet spot to alcohol, because when I started using alcohol, nobody told me about go low and go slow. I wish they did, but unfortunately, people with alcohol, some people can have one drink and they're done for the night. Some people can drink the whole bottle and they're only getting started. Some people like the light stuff, the gins and the vodkas. Some people like the dark stuff, you know, the bourbons and the scotches. Some people like an umbrella in it, you know. It really is up to you as to how it affects your body. I can't tell you how alcohol will affect your body, yet we all use it. Okay, and that's because we tried it and we found out what we liked and we didn't like. We like the umbrella, we don't like the umbrella, one of the two. And it's the same thing with cannabis. It's important that we spend a little bit of time understanding, you know, what products work for you, the THC to CBD ratios, the routes of administration, and that type of thing that's out there. And that's the go low or go slow, and be able to work your way up that. And I think that's important. I think another dimension that really confounds a lot of people is, what consumption method do I use? Do I use a tincture drop? Do I use a vape pen? Do I use a capsule? Do I use a patch? And I'd say keep it simple. Keep something that you will use. That's the best way of starting. And I recommend tincture drops and vapes as a start. Is that safe? Is that a safe starting point, Jenny?
I think that's a safe starting point. Also, you know, I like having the ACDC and one-to-one products. One-to-one products is typically where we start. A lot of times with the tinctures. Right.
And that's exactly where you want to go. So, and again, I was explaining earlier, we have the endocannabinoids, and also the phytocannabinoids. They basically go into your body. Your nervous system will find you have a problem, and then they'll actually help your endocannabinoid system regulate itself. And this has to do with the appetite, you know, your pain, your sleep, you know, your immune system, your mood. Now, there are synthetics that are out there, THC only products. You probably heard of products like Marinol that are there. I think we had a comment from one of the readers that Marinol, pure THC, isn't really as effective. And that's because it is only one compound that only works on one receptor. And so why was it developed? It was developed for AIDS patients and for cannabis patients to be able to help them. But outside of that, and also under a doctor's care, very close doctor's care, please pay attention to working with a doctor if you're heading in the synthetic area. I don't recommend using synthetics at all. And I know there's a number of, if the FDA has approved some synthetic cannabis products that are out there, Sativex and Epidiolex, I just think they are not as effective as pure cannabis itself. You cannot reproduce in the lab an apple, a pear, any product like that. So I recommend that we really take a look at stay away from those products totally. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, your brain, your nervous system knows you have a problem. We have the different components that can help us address our problems. And what's interesting is when you take cannabis, that goes into the fatty acids of your body, but the triggering mechanism is your nervous system. Your neurons say we have a problem. It breaks those down into fatty acids, and then it sends those through your bloodstream to that part of your body to be able to help relieve that particular problem. And this really explains two things. Number one, why does the entourage effect work? Because your body knows where you have a problem. You don't have to tell it. A lot of people will say, I take it for X, and I found out why it really helped. And the other is, this has a big explanation of why cannabis, nobody's died from cannabis. Not only do we not have CB1 and CB2 receptors in our brain stems, which means we're not going to stop breathing when we use it, but also the fact that it's your own body making its own medicine. It's not a foreign substance that's being produced to address the conditions of your body. Comments, Jenny?
Nope, I think you've covered a lot of it. I mean, that's exactly how it goes through and why it works. And I think it's important to visually see that.
Yeah, and this is the routes of administration. I don't want to drive down on that. We've already talked a lot about that. We'll answer a lot of questions in that particular area. But this goes back to, I think, the whole area of sweet spots. How do we find the right sweet spot? And really, it doesn't take forever. It takes a week or two. Now, I say that tongue in cheek because if you have Parkinson's disease or something like that, it may take about a month to two, maybe sometimes 3, to really get the relief you want from the Parkinson's, because it's just it's done a lot of damage to your body, and it takes a while for it to be able to be reconstructed and built back. But for most people, what they find is usually within 2 weeks to a month, they find their sweet spot. The best thing to do to find your sweet spot, listen to your body. No doctor's going to tell you, no third party is going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. Your body will, when you take something and it works, you kind of go, oh, wow. I have a patient I'm working with right now who's found her sweet spot over the last 3 weeks. And she said it was amazing. When I got there, I knew it, because my pain went away, my inflammation went away. I was able to do a lot of things. It wasn't gone, okay? but I'm able to get my life back. And that's what's really, really important.
I do recommend keeping a journal because
Yes.
as you're if you're starting the journey, just because there are a ton of options and it can get confusing and you may not remember what worked, what didn't work. So keeping a journal is super useful to when you go back into the dispensary, you can be like, oh yeah, I like this, I didn't like this. And it can help try to figure out your sweet spot.
Right. So, you know, it's something that, again, work with your doctor. Your dispensary will actually recommend products on a go low and go slow basis. Start with a 1-to-1, and you're right, journaling, and then also pay attention to eat when you eat. Cannabis loves fat, best way of putting it. It loves when you eat. It loves to have something in your stomach when you're taking it, and it's something you should pay attention to, what you have in your stomach when you're taking cannabis. It's there. So Jenny, we finished a lot. We finished talking about cannabis. Let's dive into a few questions. How's that sound?
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so let's see. Shirley had a question about, I have arthritis and numbing and tingling and extreme blurry vision. What is the best route? And also I have insomnia. I joined late. So you want to talk a little bit about her best way to start?
You know, you have a lot of things going on there. So, you know, I don't think that there's a specific best route. I would say to just, like we said, a lot of times the tinctures are the great way just to start. The tinctures with the arthritis, the Evolve Gel, or the patches, inhalation, just because it's fast acting. And with the insomnia, like we talked about earlier, either doing a combination of inhalation mixed with an edible, or maybe having an indica strain specific tincture that also can help with sleep. So there's many options. But if you're new, I would try maybe the tincture and maybe an edible for sleep, specifically for sleep, the edible.
Yeah, and stick to the 1-to-1 variety. Now, as an athlete, I can tell you, when you talk about tingling, you talk about numbing, all that comes from inflammation. Okay, whenever we've had injuries, you know, I gave up playing football when I went to college, but my sport of poison was golf. But walking somewhere between 5 to 8 miles every day, you tend to get inflammation, especially in your knees and your joints and things like that. And those are the side effects of inflammation. So you're kind of pointing to that particular problem. Stick to things that help with inflammation. A lot of CBD, high CBD concentrates that are out there, but you got to have some THC, as we mentioned earlier, to be able to address that. Start with 1-to-1. Use some of the Move products. What I love is you can get, you know, the 1-to-1, and then you can use the CBD and the THC, and you can experiment with different drops. Do it for 3 or 4 days, find out what works, try it for 3 or 4 days, and really be able to address that. And I hope that helps. That's there. Do you want to address Virginia's question?
Which one is that?
I tried. She talked about, she's tried different routes. She's tried different strengths. Okay. What's the correct dose? And I think that's what we've been trying to talk about, is what is the correct dosage. Virginia, we really can't tell you what your correct dosage is. Again, that goes to, but step back for a second, just relax and take a breath. You've tried a lot of different things. Okay. First of all, get a journal. It's the best place to start.
I mean, it looks like it says here that you took 50 milligrams in one day. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. So I think you maybe went too high, too fast. So like Marc was saying, definitely come down and let's start from the beginning.
Well, if you're taking that much cannabis, my recommendation is stop. Take at least 3 days, if not 5 days off. Let your body reset. Okay. Just let it, like you say, come down, meaning if you stop taking cannabis from 3 to 5 days, your body will completely reset, especially after the 5th day. Okay. And then you'll find that when you do reintroduce cannabis into your body, what happens is it's more effective, and you need to take less of it to have more effect. That's out there. We call it the holiday that's there. In my particular case, because of my herniated discs, I really can't go more than a day and a half. To be blunt, my neck pain gets to a point that after a day and a half, after 2 days, I get, maybe I'm a wuss, I don't know, but the pain is there. And so my holiday consists of 1 to 2 days, but I do find it becomes a lot more effective. So Virginia, I think the best thing is do the holiday, get yourself a journal, start with some 1-to-1, and then really increase the amount of CBD, then increase the amount of THC, maybe from 25 milliliters to 50 milliliters, and try that, and then see how that works, and let it work for a day or two. This isn't something you take it and that afternoon it works. It takes a day or two for your body to react to it, but that's what the whole dosing formula, it sounds like what you need to do is just go through the dosing formula again and find your right formulation. You were headed in the wrong direction. You're taking way too much,
Too fast.
and it wasn't effective for you. Just
Right.
reset. That's my recommendation.
Me too.
Good. Okay. Roseanne had a question about the Evolve Transdermal Gel. Put it directly on the pain area.
Yeah, I think we discussed this one. So this one, you don't have to put it directly on the pain area. You could put it just on the veins.
Yeah. Now, Daryl asked the question is, where do you find a bottle of CBD oil? Jenny, can you answer that question?
Move.
That was a setup. Yeah, you have, and what's nice about it is it's pure CBD. Okay. And so, in other words, it's not full spectrum, it's full CBD. You also have a number of stores that sell CBD oil. We have a store called My Botanical Wellness, where I do sell CBD oil. I don't advertise it here during these webinars, but My Botanical Wellness will provide CBD products. And these are physician recommended, meaning we've had doctors look at the products that we cover. These are hemp-based. These are not medical marijuana based. It's only hemp-based product, but we do it primarily to be able to provide products for our patients who are trying to go through the dosing problem and trying to find where to go, that type of thing. The other question is, what types of products contain ACDC, Jenny?
Yes, so we talked about this one also. So the vapes, and we have it in the RSO tincture and the RSO syringe.
Oh, great. Well, Jenny, we've gone through an hour and 52 minutes of talking about medical cannabis and arthritis and answered a whole bunch of questions. And first of all, I want to thank everybody that are still hanging on there. It's amazing to me how many people go through the whole thing. I hope you get something out of it. I know people ask me what's my objective of doing these webinars. My objective is real simple. If I can help one person every day get their life back, that's what's important to me. And that's my goal in life. That's my personal stated goal in life. Last year, I was able to accomplish it. I can put the names of over 400 people that have got their life back by using medical cannabis from work that I've done from that there. And I feel good about that. And that's what I want to do for you as well, is hopefully by trying some of these products, by trying some of the options, by being a little more educated, by being able to get the consultation from people like Move, knowing that it exists, hopefully we can provide that, get that back and help you with this as well. So before I give some wrap-up comments, Jenny, you want to wrap up?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who jumped on as well. It shows that you all are open-minded to learn. And I think in cannabis, that's the biggest obstacle that we're facing right now is education. So bravo for you for, wanting to educate yourself more. That's what Marc and I are just continuing to do across the state and across the country, just trying to help people in a natural way and potentially get off some of the pharmaceuticals and help you on a natural path.
Right. So, and thank you, Jenny, and thank you for what you've done. I mean, you've worked with a lot of patients. You're a very busy person, but I thank you for taking the time to help us out tonight. And
thank you for having us. Thank you. We appreciate it. It's always our pleasure.
Great. And I'd like to wrap up by basically saying thank you very much for attending the webinar. It's important. We hope we're here for you. Next week's webinar will be on anxiety and stress. So please join us for that. That's obviously a hot topic and something that's of concern of a lot of people. I know that I do want to mention that not only do we have the different, go to marijuanaaware.com, you can sign up for the various webinars that are out there. And then we have our live webinar in the villages, which hopefully pay attention, will be attended. Move will be there, right?
We will be there. We will be represented.
Cool. So it'll be kind of fun. It'd be interesting to do that again because we did that for 2 years and we haven't done it because of COVID. So, and we are going to be COVID safe. So we're asking people to wear masks. We're not requiring it, but we're asking people to wear masks. We will be socially distancing. So we're trying to make this as safe as possible to be able to get some folks some information. So listen, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to some people in the background. You've probably seen Deja and Lee providing some comments. Without them, this doesn't work. And thank you very much. And a couple other shout outs. One other shout out is to Alyssa. She's the lady who came up with this idea, and I want to give her a shout out and say thank you for really being the seed that you planted, that seed that's turned out to be something great. So listen, everybody, have a great weekend. Please stay safe, and hopefully we provided some information to help you get your life back. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.